Hey, my name's Nathan, this is the Future Game Show, and as much as we all love video games, there are clearly some things that developers and publishers need to stop doing right at this exact second, like right now. You stop, cease and desist at this exact moment. So we put together a top 10 list of please, if you will, things that we're begging the games industry to just have a wee think about, and maybe, you never know, this might be what causes them to change their ways. And as always, one of these entries has been suggested by you, your very fine selves, in the comments. And if you'd like to be included in next week's video, then comment below with what you think is the easiest boss battle of all time. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. These are 10 things that modern video games need to cease at this exact moment. Number 10. Always online single player games. The entire appeal of single-player games is that you don't need to deal with anyone else in order to play them. What's that? You have a download speed in the single digits and struggle to stream words onto a page? Hey, don't worry about it. Of course, if you like to enter the realms of racist teenagers and play your video games online, a good internet connection is vital. But if you're just kicking about virtual worlds with no one but your good self, you don't have to worry about it. Well, you shouldn't have to worry about it. Because in recent years, a disturbing trend has emerged, one in which it's becoming increasingly common for games to require a constant internet connection just to play through their single-player campaign. There's a range of reasons why companies do this, being able to keep a close eye on and react to player data and bugs, social integration, seamless updates, but it's most likely used to stem piracy. And while 99% of us are connected to the internet 99% of the time, it's in that 1% of moment when the internet's down and for some reason you've decided to pass the time by playing Suicide Squad, and no, you will not be doing that. Better yet, it ensures that if the servers ever go down or the developer closes up shop, that the game is now likely useless. And if archaeologists of the next civilization find it, they'll have to simply assume that we collected little discs in a box that had no intended use or purpose, and they'll be like, first Funko Pops now this? Wow, this civilization was lame. And that's the future you condemn us to with these online-only connections. Stop it. Number 9. Cursor-based menus in console games. Cursor-based menus of course make total sense for PC gaming, where the majority of players are using a mouse to navigate, but on consoles, not so much. Over the last decade or so, cursor menus have become increasingly popular in console games, a trend kickstarted by Destiny and its incredibly slow controller navigation. Console cursor menus require the player to move around the interface with the controller's analog sticks, typically before holding down a button to confirm the selection. Yet, considering how sluggish and unintuitive it is compared to a more traditional navigation system designed specifically for that controller and specifically for those buttons, it can't help but seem like a solution to avoid designing two separate control schemes for mice and also controllers. It's the sort of thing that one developer introduced and everyone was like, oh, this is different. And that doesn't mean it's good, just different is new. Different is exciting, and now it's become the norm. So there you go. Our stupid obsession with new stuff is shot us in the back, or the foot, or both. In 2024, cursor menus are everywhere in console gaming, and given that it's been employed in some of the best-selling games of recent years, it's sadly unlikely to go away anytime soon. Number 8. Turning gaming into a job. We can all agree that gaming should be, above all else, fun. Right? And while it can be many other things, it definitely shouldn't feel like a job, like an obligation you need to do on a daily basis. But live service games with their daily and weekly challenges, battle passes, limited time rewards, and so on, attempt to prey on our tough to shake FOMO, whereby we feel like we're falling behind other players if we don't regularly check in with the game. Why are they so popular in gaming though? Well, seeing as games cost roughly $600 billion for every 30 seconds of gameplay, publishers want to make sure that you're playing that investment of theirs for as long as possible and not moving on to the next thing in your backlog. Clearly, something with game development needs to change, but filling them with daily tasks so dull that taking the bins out seems like an exciting distraction isn't the way to go. Number 7. Games releasing in a broken state. And this week's user entry comes from @DarkReaper1982, who's chosen games releasing in a broken state. Here's the thing about making video games, it's hard. These days the complexity and craft required to make a AAA game is it's almost unfathomable. Couple that with the fact that your marketing team need to set a date to start advertising the game, getting people excited for its release, and your publisher is banking on Nintendogs Part 2 Remastered being their big seller for the summer season, and for some reason, anytime a player flips the camera axis, the game immediately freezes and then explodes. And with all of this all put together, you can start to see exactly how much of a high wire balancing act releasing a video game actually is. You can only delay so many times before a game just has to be released, and as much as I can sympathise with how hard that process is, doesn't really excuse the disastrous launches of Cyberpunk or No Man's Sky or Fallout 76. The thing is, most of these games go on to become stellar, polished experiences, but it's usually after a year or two of updates and fixes, basically meaning that day one buyers are paying just to do a game's bug testing. And like I said though, making these huge games is hard, and as an industry, we're going through a learning process, and I will always defend developers. They're the guys that make video games, and I love video games, but games launching in a broken state is something that as an industry, we have to figure out. Number 6, going after modders. Modders are in many respects the lifeblood of PC gaming. From creating fun skins to releasing quality of life fixes, the modding community has helped keep many games alive for years, even decades after the developers have stopped officially supporting them. And yet, not all publishers are quite so thrilled to have their players modding their games. In 2021, Take-Two filed a lawsuit against modders who optimised Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City to run more easily on modern PCs. This was then quickly followed by an announcement of the perfectly timed Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition trilogy, a game so well received that it's the only video game on Metacritic to have a Metascore of 200. And Capcom have found themselves in hot water lately after deeming mods akin to cheating. They've been routinely issuing takedown notices against those who host mods and post videos of themselves playing with them. I mean, come on, get a life. Cynically, you can argue that companies like Capcom are targeting cosmetic mods because they want to sell their own official outfits instead, but hunting down modders makes less sense when they're offering something that the company themselves isn't and possibly never would. Modding has breathed fresh life into innumerable games over the decades, and so taking the kibosh to the most enthusiastic people playing your game is certainly a choice. Number 5, yellow paint. In recent times, there's been considerable debate about the use of, wait for it, yellow paint in games. A mechanic used by developers to, not so subtly, signpost the way forward for players. Lately, both the Resident Evil 4 remake and Still Wakes the Deep have been raked over the coals for their arguably excessive use of the brightly coloured coating. Although, can I quickly point out that it makes sense for Still Wakes the Deep because it literally takes place in an industrial setting. Come on, give them a break. In the eyes of many, yellow paint is a shorthand, but a bit of a lazy one, and some see it as a failing in art design to be able to direct the player in a more inventive, naturalistic way that complements the game's scenery. And while there's absolutely the argument that yellow paint could be an accessibility feature to help certain players that might need it, it might be a nice middle ground to be able to disable it if the sight of citrus-inspired paint throws you into a fit of rage. You know, because I've got to be honest, I don't really mind it, but it does seem to have ruffled enough feathers to have developers thinking twice about whether or not to include it. Number 4, not letting you pause. It seems almost ridiculous to call the pause button a feature in modern video games, because why would a game not let you pause it? No matter how immersed you might be, we all need to pause the action now and then to answer the phone, grab a drink, go to the toilet, or just attend to those many unexpected things that happen in life, which 84% of the time for me is a vomiting dog. Pausing is about as basic a quality of life feature as you can get, and yet it's flabbergasting that some high-profile titles still won't let you do it. There are two especially egregious examples in recent times. From Software games prevent you from pausing in the masochistic pursuit of immersion, and Marvel's Midnight Suns not letting you pause cutscenes. Something that games have regularly allowed us to do for, I don't know, about 15 years now. Obviously pausing becomes a more complex matter in games with a major online component, but if you're just playing solo, there's really no excuse for making me ruin a pair of pants while fighting Ornstein and Smough. Number 3. Squeezing through gaps. Though conventional loading screens have become decidedly less frequent over the last decade, they've often been replaced by in-game animations intended to disguise those loading screens instead. Of course, we're talking about the infamous gap squeezing animation, where the player character will take 5 to 10 seconds to shimmy through a tight gap while the game loads the next area. While it was once quite a slick way of disguising your game prepping the next environment, these days, as a substitute for a loading screen, it's completely worn itself out. Lately, games like the Star Wars Jedi series, the Final Fantasy remake, and Hellblade 2 all liberally use the gap squeeze trick. And while it's not nearly as bad as some of the other entries on this list, it does still feel painfully overdone and unimaginative, and someone needs to think of an alternative stat. Also, could we please just take a moment to appreciate Game Maker's Toolkit, who christened these sections load-bearing walls. Oh, round of applause please. Just perfect piece of wordplay. Number 2. No title screen. It may not be the biggest gripe, but it drives a number of us absolutely crazy. Booting up a game and being thrown into the action might be fun for some, but for the great many who like to tweak the experience, or maybe even need to tweak the experience, it is incredibly annoying. A title screen is one of the most basic features of any game, allowing players to enter the options menu, tweak graphic settings, and most importantly, enable accessibility features. It's maddening that in the year of our Lord 2024, there are games that still start without taking players to a menu first, often forcing them to sit through feature-length cutscenes and boring tutorials before they get the chance to make those adjustments. No matter how eager a developer might be to wow players with what they cooked up, let us sort out the finer details first, yeah? Just give me a sec, just give me a minute, just 2 minutes to sort, just give me 1 minute to sort myself and then I'll be right into it, okay? Just 1 minute, thank you. Number 1. Microtransactions in full-priced games. Microtransaction is one of the dirtiest words in the modern gaming sphere, and for good reason. Even when paid content is nothing more than cosmetic, it's often primed to exploit players and prey on those with addictive personalities. And while microtransactions are often forgiven as the cost of doing business in free-to-play or lower-priced games, their presence becomes much more problematic where full-priced $60 to $70 titles are concerned. When the likes of Call of Duty, NBA, Battlefield and countless Ubisoft releases come packed to the gills with paid extras on top of a full fat retail price, it can't help but seem greedy at best, if not just downright insulting. If literally buying the game at almost $100 isn't enough to make it profitable, it suggests an industry that's got a major sustainability problem. Good thing then that microtransactions sell terribly, eh? Oh no, wait, there's billions generated from them every single year, which basically means there's zero chance of them ever going away, even in full-priced AAA games. And there you have it, the 10 things that modern video games need to immediately stop doing. Did we cover all of them? Was there any that we missed? Let us know below. Oh, and don't forget to comment on what you think is the easiest boss battle of all time, and you might just see yourself popping up in next week's video. But I've been Nathan, this has been the Future Game Show, and I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. I know it's only July, but I just wanted to get it in now. Sometimes I forget.